There can be no justice so long as the laws are absolute. Life itself teaches us that. Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Heir's Lair. I'm your host, Jonathan Taylor. For today's video, I thought I'd do something I haven't really done in the history of my channel before, namely review some spin-off material from a franchise that has its origins outside of the print medium. More precisely, as the title of this video will have already given away, I will be talking about the autobiography of Jean-Luc Picard, compiled by David A. Goodman and published by Titan Books. Or to be more precise, I've actually read the German edition, translated by Katrin Lechtermann and published by Cross Cult. Still, given how familiar I am with both languages, I can say that the translation is, for the most part, quite effective. I haven't noticed any like story breaking abnormalities, so to speak. Going a little bit back to the author, uh, I've looked David Goodman up a little, and I can say that he is quite an interesting figure. He had his start as a TV writer for Golden Girls, and then moved on to Star Trek, obviously, Futurama, and Family Guy. The latter of which ensured that he ended up either being the co-creator of or heavily involved with the Orville, alongside Seth MacFarlane. So it's fair to say that this man has has an impressive career behind him. However, as most Hollywood insiders have pointed out on various occasions, quality isn't necessarily correlated with longevity within the business. So, with that being said, what can I say about the quality of this book? Well, my impressions in summary are, you know how people said that Solo, a Star Wars movie, is nothing but nostalgia bait, like simply introducing a whole bunch of elements that the audience would recognize as familiar because the higher ups at the studio thought that would make the movie good or marketable, and therefore successful. Well, the worst parts of this book kind of come across as that. However, those moments are few and far enough between that the general impression of the book is still at least somewhat favorable. So, if the title of the book has been enough to persuade you, it is quite likely you'll enjoy the book itself. And now that I'm done with the general impressions, it's time I delve into some specifics. The plot of the book follows its titular character, somewhat obviously, starting in his childhood, going a little bit into the history of his family as well, then going all the way into his old age. And that pretty large segment of his life is explored, first of all, actually his entire life, not just a large segment of his life. And his life is explored, first of all, in segments, which are further broken down into various scenes, moments, episodes, whatever you want to call them, where Picard either performed a particularly influential action, or where something of note happened to him, and in any way, these events, these moments, led to him gaining some kind of understanding about himself, or it led to him being stuck with a particular impression that that ended up influencing how it is that he approaches his life, his duties, his assignments, his responsibilities, plural. I should note that this book came out before Star Trek Picard started airing, so there are no references to that at all. There are, however, various callbacks and hooks from TNG that this book is quite effective at using in order to flesh out the life story of its titular character. making the making the development that he goes through that much more significant, to the point that when the book actually reaches the TNG era of his life, there are various moments that are actually emphasized, that are actually improved by the presentation. Wolf 359 in particular becoming that much more of a gut punch once you realize just how connected Picard actually was to the rest of Starfleet, at least in that moment. There are other such references and callbacks that I don't think work as effectively. More on that later. From a characterization perspective, it is somewhat obvious that the main character will receive the bulk of it, given that the story is, first of all, mentioned from his perspective, and he tends to editorialize a lot throughout this presentation of his education, of his maturation, one could say. So in that sense, it offers an outstanding insight into who that character is, and I can safely say that this book succeeded in its primary goal. That being said, the things that drew my attention when I read wasn't necessarily what I read about Jean-Luc Picard. That was somewhat of a given when starting this book, and a lot of it is actually done quite well. But from a character standpoint, I was more interested in how or I was more curious, so to speak, about the characters around him, and the book really does a good job at highlighting who it is they are, what their connection to Picard is, and also what makes them distinctive. It very effectively introduces the lead characters of TNG, and showcases what it is about them that made Picard interested in them to the point where he wanted them on his crew. However, in terms of characterization, the highlight to me was Picard's time on the Stargazer, as he put his crew together, and how their different personalities came to the forefront, but also how it is that these characters worked together over the course of their various adventures. There is, however, one character who I find has been somewhat shafted by the story, and that is Beverly, or as the TNG casuals know her, Dr. Crusher. The relationship between her and her child's father come across as unintentionally creepy, and the attempts at mitigating that, at giving her some level of development that makes her stand out more and come across as a more appropriate partner, so to speak, don't really mesh well with her existing characterization, and it is for that reason that they kind of fall flat. Also, the fact that Picard was also drawn to her, still doesn't really sit well with me. So I have to say, it is a good job that it managed to that there is a single character that unfortunately fell between the cracks. However, the fact that it is this noteworthy a character who fell between the cracks, i.e., his future wife, not a great moment, so to speak. When it comes to the world building, it is interesting, but also oddly quite minimal, because a lot of the elements that are brought into the book and that the characters play around with are actually established in another franchise. So therefore, there isn't a lot of description. They are simply slotted into the setting. And for the most part, I have to say that the slotting does actually work. It it is effective. The elements within the story do in fact do a great job at highlighting it and actually making it better, more engaging to follow. There are, however, two notable exceptions to that. First of all, I find that most of the references to Star Trek Enterprise aren't particularly aren't particularly well integrated within the story or within the setting itself. However, the more egregious of the two is the moment that depicts Picard as traveling to DS9 back when it was still known as Empok Nor. That is really peak nostalgia baiting for the for a Star Trek audience, because that moment doesn't really contribute to to any significant degree to the rest of the story. So yeah, I had to comment on that. Overall, while I find this book to be a little bit too fragmented and uneven to fully realize its narrative potential, it nevertheless stands out quite effectively as a series of short adventure stories focused on its titular character. My final rating for the Autobiography of Jean-Luc Picard is a 3 out of 5. And yeah, that was my review. Thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed it, well then please like the video, maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If there is anything you would like to add, either to the book itself or to my review of it, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. My books, the first of my own Heir to the Empire series, The Next Generation and The Path Not Taken, are available at various book retailers under their respective master links in the description down below, right past my social media links, which I also suggest you check out should you choose to. I also have a second channel where you can hear me talking about whatever crosses my mind. That could be social commentary, that could be gameplay, but most of the time it's still narrative analysis, but of works outside of the print medium. So if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and check it out. If you want to hear more about my thoughts on the print medium, then I suggest you stay on this channel and go through my extensive backlog of book reviews, writing advice, and miscellaneous connected topics. If none of those interest you, then I suggest you go ahead and do whatever you want the rest of your day, because it is your day after all. And yeah, that was it for me. So until next time, I am Jonathan Taylor, and this has been The Heir's Lair.